Welcome back to the St. Louis Parish Podcast. I'm joined by our pastor, Father O'Hare, and today we have a very special guest, Bishop Burbidge. Bishop, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's great to be with you. And Father O'Hare, thanks for the kind invitation to have this conversation.
Absolutely. We appreciate you taking the time. We know you have a pretty busy, packed schedule. I know you have confirmation tonight here as well.
Right. Yeah. What a beautiful day. I woke up today. I said, this is a nice day. I get to do a little podcast in St. Louis, and a great joy and privilege of confirming almost 100 young men and women from this parish. And I know that they are always well prepared. When I come here to St. Louis, there's a beautiful education formation program, and I look forward to being with them and their families this evening. It's really one of the greatest joys of being a bishop is going out and celebrating the sacrament of confirmation.
That's great. So since you are on the St. Louis Parish Podcast, I wanted to bring up, I think it's a very well-known fact, you do have your own podcast, the Walk Humbly podcast.
Right.
And we've listened to many episodes, and you do have many, many listeners. But I wanted to pick your brain a little bit. I wanted to know maybe what the inspirations for starting the podcast were, your overall vision, and then maybe some goals that you had with the podcast. Because I believe you've been doing it for about 9 years now,
yes.
If I'm correct?
Yeah, almost 9 years, Andrew. And, we are so blessed in being encouraged in our church and with our Holy Fathers, John Paul II, Benedict, Francis, all encouraging us with the new evangelization to use all the appropriate tools and resources possible to speak the truth and the joy of the gospel to others, and to be creative in the ways that we might do that. And so there's not just one way of communicating with the parishioners of our diocese. There's multiple ways. And we thought the podcast would be one more resource for doing that. The other advantage of that too, Andrew, is the fact that sometimes a pastoral issue of the day or a issue confronting our people surfaces. And rather than waiting to write a pastoral letter or to write a talk or something like that, we can decide to go right to the studio and say, listen, I know this is the issue with many of us are dealing with at this time. Here's what I believe the church and our Lord is asking of us. And so you're timely, right? One of the important reasons for communications is that we can speak in a timely manner. So that was another reason we did the podcast. And the third reason, this probably won't be a surprise to anyone. The third reason is it's always great to have your own voice talking about a certain subject, because people hear different things, and many times it's sometimes with very good intentions, but people say, well, Bishop Burbidge said, and then, well, if it's my own voice, then we can go back to what Bishop Burbidge said, right?
Right.
And so that's an important thing. Or sometimes we will get letters even to the offices and say, how come Bishop Burbidge hasn't spoken out on this topic? Or how come Bishop Burbidge saying that? And we can actually refer them and say, thanks for the question, and we're really glad for your interest. But here's the link to podcast number 72 or whatever it was, where Bishop Burbidge has spoken about that, and again, he did so on this. So again, it provides some practical helps to my pastoral ministry.
What's very nice, Father, I think I brought this up with you, is the long form. You have so much more opportunity to get into some details.
Right.
But I didn't realize the timely manner of it. I thought that's very interesting.
Yeah, so sometimes we will have like a podcast schedule for next Tuesday, and something happens. The Pope, addresses a certain issue, or a significant issue in our country surfaces, or whatever. We can decide, we can't wait till next Tuesday. Let's go down to the studio now and do a podcast. And so that's a really great advantage that we have. And we take questions. We invite people to write in questions at the end of the podcast, which are always interesting.
Sure.
I thought we'd get a lot more questions than I actually do, but it's always an invitation we send.
Yeah. Because Bishop, what it made me think about is if you didn't have a podcast, there's almost like an implied silence.
Yes.
Because people expect the church, the voice of shepherd, to be present where they are.
Right.
Because so many other voices are, right? So I never thought about like the timeliness, as you say, that there would be a delay and a sense of absence, if I can say it that way. And then the ability to speak about the issues and events of people's real lives. In other words, like the nearness.
Right. Yes.
It keeps you near to them.
It's true, and as a shepherd, we're always, or as a pastor, as a bishop, we're always trying to imitate the good shepherd, and the Lord. They recognize His voice, right? Yeah. They recognize His voice, and there's something, as you know, Father Hare. There's something about we can, write an article, or do a bulletin announcement, or whatever. But there's something when it's your voice. Because our tone, our the way we speak, the way we say, sometimes is equally as important as what we say as well.
And isn't there a WTOP effect of your voice?
Yes, yeah.
You have a funny story about that.
I do have a funny story about that. I have a couple of funny stories about that. But we do these WTOP radio spots, which was like a well, it's a little bit challenging because the message has to be like 57 to 59 seconds. So we come up with the message. All right, this is the message I want to say. But as I'm recording the message, it has to be for the radio it can't be too short and can't be too long.
Right.
So I have to make some audibles at the very end, to get that time frame. And the WTOP spots are really meant for a very broad audience, not just a Catholic audience. It's really meant for people, of Christians, but also people of goodwill. And the WTOP spots are really try to be messages of hope and encouragement, and really relating to daily living. And the nice part about them is that they catch people when they least expect it, like when they're driving. And the way we do the partnership with the radio station WTOP is, we buy a package. And the package is one where they sort it out. So it's not always 2:00 on Mondays. That you can hear the message for the week comes at different times. Sometimes in the morning, sometimes at night. And actually, when I am out, it's one of the. We try to do many things, and we try to figure out what's working and what's not working. But one thing that I consistently hear positive messages about is the WTOP spots. And what people say to me is that, Bishop, it's helpful to me because my colleague who's not Catholic mentions it, or my family member who's been away from the church, heard you talk about forgiveness, for example, or something, when they were least expecting that. And so it's nice that it's reaching that broader audience. So on a funny note, though, Father Hare, you mentioned just recently, one of the gentlemen was saying to me, Bishop, he says, I am not kidding you. I think you're following me. I go, what do you mean? He said, whenever I'm driving and I'm doing something wrong, like I'm getting impatient in traffic, or I'm like, I just beat my horn or whatever, your voice comes on the WTOP radio. It's like, you're making me feel more guilty. I said, wow,
that's great.
Your shepherd is watching you.
The voice of a conscience through the voice of the shepherd. That's great.
From a parishioner perspective, it is very nice.
Thank you.
Getting to hear your voice in this long form conversation, because I have a little bit of a cheat code because I'm a parish employee, so I have access to priests more so than the average lay person. But at my home parish, my time with the priest there and the pastor is very limited.
Yeah.
Maybe capped at a matter of a few seconds if there's a long line after Mass, or maybe a few minutes if I catch him in a different spot. So it's very nice to hear your guidance, your voice especially. There's so much more information that you can gather from tone of voice, inflection, cadence, versus just written word.
It's really true, Andrew. That's a very good point. And again, we don't shy away from the difficult issues. If you're going to have a podcast, you have to talk about what people are talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And so we don't shy away from the difficult issues, and it really makes it pastorally such a great help, because, again, like you just mentioned, the way you communicate or the way you can convey something, it can be a little bit more hopefully inspiring rather than imposing, and again, it's trying to speak heart to heart, and not just relay information.
Yeah, and Bishop, I don't know if you know, well, you wouldn't know this, but Andrew and I, when we started this podcast last year, we really took your podcast as a model, which is to say that it was Billy Atwell, now it's Tom, right? But that Billy, or now Tom, is really almost standing in for the people of the diocese who would love to have a conversation with you.
Right. Yeah.
So I see that with Andrew here in the parish, that he is like in persona parishioner.
Right.
In the person of the parishioners who, like you said, Andrew, you don't get a lot of personal one-on-one conversation with priests or pastors or a bishop. And so a podcast lets you kind of vicariously have conversations with your shepherd.
Yeah, that's a great point, Father Hare. And Billy Atwell and Tom Shakely, our communications directors, when we are doing the podcast, like we're doing with Andrew today, I'm not even seeing them as my chief communications officer. Both, Billy in his role, and then Tom when he succeeded him, both are, as you said, their parishioners, their husbands, their fathers, their friends, and I really do. That's when we try to do, and both of them have such a great style, as Andrew does as well, of creating that atmosphere where I don't feel like I'm being interviewed, by ABC News or something. I really believe that I am, when I'm sitting across from, Tom now, I really believe like I'm having a conversation. As you mentioned, he represents the parishioners, and that's what I try to focus on. I'm talking to my parishioners, not to my chief communications officer.
Yeah, and it really is a conversation. It's not an interview.
Exactly.
Which is to say that, and we've had great conversations where you make some really interesting points.
Right.
That's part of the contribution to the podcast conversation is the lay insight, the lay perspective, the lay understanding of certain things. And I mean, I learn things from our conversations. So there's a really neat, there's a lot, as I say, the medium is the message. So the very form of a podcast conversation, not being an interview, but a true conversation. There's something, I would even say this, that the collaboration or co-responsible relationship of clergy and laity is almost implied there too.
That's exactly right. And so, like you said, sometimes the conversation goes a way you didn't actually think it was going to go. But in the conversation, we're praying, right? The Spirit of God is leading us. And so sometimes it goes that route. I say, wow, I didn't think about that. That's a good thought. So,
would this be a correct analogy? Fireside chats?
That was FDR, right?
Yeah.
And that was a radio show.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, I wasn't there, right? But you read about this, that the sense of the nearness, the relationship, the personal care.
Right. Yeah. And that was, I mean, he was way ahead of his time of thinking about communicating in such a way. But it does. That nearness just gives you, it strengthens a relationship. It strengthens a relationship. I think a pastor with his parishioners, a bishop with his faithful of the diocese.
Yeah.
Bishop, I wanted to ask you, have you had any maybe meaningful interactions with people through the podcast? Maybe they heard something especially profound or something just really resonated with them and you were able to hear that, like it came back to you?
Yeah, I think where it has happened the most, where it makes me feel, that God is working through this ministry, is that people will often, I would say frequently, will say to me, Bishop, thank you so much for talking about this very sensitive topic. whether it be in vitro fertilization or transgender identity or whatever. Because I really did not know how to speak to my son or my daughter about this or my family member. And it just was a lot easier sharing a link and just gently inviting them, saying, listen, if you ever get a chance, I know we disagree on this topic, or you've been asking me questions about, I haven't been able to answer. Maybe you just want to listen to, these 4 minutes or something. So people have said, I think what has been the most consistent feedback, Andrew, would be it has sometimes been a resource, a tool for people to use to engage, whether it be a family member or a colleague or someone like that who maybe is away from the church or maybe is in strong opposition to something the church teaches. So I would think that would be the most consistent feedback I get.
Yes, it shows you really understand what's going on in their world, their lives.
Right, exactly, yeah.
It's also another point for podcasts because it's a digital shareable link. It's not like, oh, I wish you heard Bishop's homily on Sunday.
Right.
It's actually, no, we have Bishop's voice right here. Please just take a quick listen.
Yeah.
So,
when I've talked to Father Serby, who is, quite a podcaster himself, one of the things that motivates him is it becomes a tool of evangelization for someone who listens to it to share with friends or family.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this would be so good for my brother to hear, but he doesn't go to church, right?
Yeah, that's exactly the feedback I get. And they can say, listen from, 4 minutes and 3 seconds to 5 minutes and 18 seconds. That's all you got to listen to, or whatever. So that's where I think I get pretty good feedback from.
That's great.
So here on the local level, we have a St. Louis Parish podcast.
Yes.
Bishop, people commute many hours each week. They have plenty of time to listen to both podcasts.
Right.
So they can fit in yours.
We're not competing in ratings.
No, there is plenty of space. In fact, I think about that people spend so much time in the car.
Yeah.
We want to be there with them, especially, literally as they suffer, right, in their commutes, right?
Yeah.
We also have taken the opportunity to let some of the parish groups get some time on the podcast. I'm not always the one speaking. And something really neat happened just this last month. So Andrew hosted teens who are helping to lead our Monday night teen Bible study groups. We have a group of boys and a group of girls. And within a week or two of that podcast coming out, they had a lot more kids than they had before, especially more boys.
Wow.
And then you recently had the recruitment guy from Knights of Columbus.
Chuck Roman
gave a great pitch, and they got 8 or 10 more guys. Not
Is that
long
right?
After that, yeah.
Wow.
So it's really neat because it's like a radio show.
Yeah,
right? It's like a radio show, and people get to kind of appear on the show. And and also, what I think about Bishop is that there's so many great things happening in the parishes, and people just don't know. I'm blessed to know. I know all the great things that are happening, but how to let the sort of unveil parishioner to parishioner what's going on. It's really neat to see the grace getting shared that way.
And so what kind of feedback, or Andrew's question to me, so what motivated you? What inspired you to say, this is something I should be doing as a pastor?
Honestly, I'll be honest, I can't remember the exact mindset. I think it's just the desire to connect. Actually, no, I do remember now. It was especially with a mind towards the parents of school-age children. Wanting to be of support to them in their growth in the faith. I mean, all parishioners are important, but when you think as a pastor about parents raising children, they only get one chance to raise their kids. And so to motivate, to inspire, to help them grow in their faith as they're raising children, well, you're impacting not just them, but the children being raised in those homes, whether it's school parents, whether it's RE parents. So I do remember that being a particular focus.
Yeah. The commuter issue was one thing.
Yeah.
Which is many of the same, right? Yeah.
And then just similar themes that we've been speaking about today was, I wish I could explain or maybe get a little bit deeper into these topics, but also explain parish happenings, keep the parish community a little more connected. And then, featuring parish groups, getting everybody plugged in to things they may not have known about.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to miss bulletin ads. It's easy to miss short announcements after Mass, things like that. So the podcast is a great platform.
Yeah, to my mind, it's like a neighborhood radio show.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And there is one family in particular. We do it audio, and we also do YouTube video. And I know at least one family, like they literally gather around the TV and watch the podcast every week.
That's great, though. That's wonderful.
It's a family event.
No.
Yeah.
And so your target audience is really just the parishioners?
Just the parish, yeah. It's only for our own parishioners. So there's going to be some topic of local meaning parish local.
Right.
We don't do current events. We don't do something beyond our local parish life. I'll do some teaching here and there. Like, for example, we've done where take a question from the kids in the school. You know, where does Mary live?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And I'll answer it on a kid level and then answer it on an adult level, right? So the idea being that parents are listening, but also explaining it to their kids, you know? Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
There's also different parish initiatives that you get to explain the reasoning behind why they're taking effect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as you know, Bishop, we're in competition with so much. They're so busy.
Right.
But I really do think a lot about the commuting time.
Yeah.
I was meeting with parents just on this past Sunday, talking about commuting and things like that. I said, once in a while I have to go to a meeting, like a priest meeting, Bishop, and I got to drive 45 minutes. And I remember like, wow, I'm sorry, guys, for what you have to do every day.
Every day.
I'm like,
I know.
Wow.
Every day.
Wow. I mean, that's a sacrifice, right? For their families. So why not join them? You know, the podcast lets you join them in their commute or when they're running errands or carpooling their kids.
Right.
And as you say, there's a grace of the voice.
Yeah.
I really think a lot about that, Bishop. And I have this rhyme that I keep coming back to that, for example, children are hardwired to be inspired by mom and dad.
Right.
Mom and dad, they're shepherds of the home.
Right.
And then parishioners are hardwired to be inspired by their priest and their pastor.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual relationship that's real. And then the people of the diocese are hardwired to be inspired by the voice of their shepherd.
Right.
You know, Jesus said, I am the shepherd, my sheep know me, they know my voice, they follow me.
Right.
So I really think this is not just sort of a cleverness, this isn't just sort of a smart use of technology. There's a grace.
Right.
Because of the relationship of the one speaking and the one listening.
Right. I think that was probably my initial concern, when it was suggested, hey, why don't we, do a podcast? And what you just mentioned, Father O'Hare, was, I didn't want that to be, a focus on me, like, I have my own show or something like that it was not meant to be a gimmick or anything like that. So that was my concern. And, with a really good team around me, just say, no, if we do it the right way, and with the right intentions, it's going to be a tool. It's not meant to be anything other than that. It focuses on you. It's you having a conversation with your faithful.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel much more comfortable, with that. I think we're like you said. I'm not trying to reach a national audience or become famous on YouTube or anything like that. It's just like I just want to speak to the faithful of my diocese, and I want them to hear my voice and someone not quoting me or misquoting me, but I want them to hear my voice.
Yeah, the clarity. But as Andrew said, I would even say this, that even if a person didn't remember a single word you spoke during a particular podcast, they might not remember in a day or a week or a month later particular content, but they, from the heart, the voice speaks from the heart.
Right.
So just the heart of the priest, the heart of the bishop, that is communicated through the voice, tone, as you say, cadence, the feeling of compassion.
Yes.
You can write a letter and say the words compassion, kindness, and mercy. You can say them and they're real, but they can hear it in your voice that you do feel compassion for someone suffering with fill in the blank, right?
Right.
There's something so real about that, faith comes through hearing, right? The hearing, there's something powerful there.
Right. No, I agree. I definitely agree. Yeah.
Speaking of hearing, I want to hear from Andrew. So Bishop, I have a struggle. I tend to think everything's easy. I say, hey, let's just do this, right? It's easy. Like, Father, you don't realize it's going to take 12 hours to get. Okay. Well, so Andrew would not let me say it's easy. However, it's not as difficult as you think. I have permission to say that.
To do a podcast.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So parishes could have their own podcast to communicate with their people.
Right.
And what we do here, for example, Bishop, is once a week a flock note is sent out. We know the diocese is using flock note too. We find it a very effective tool. So once a week a flock note email is sent out. Is it generally Fridays? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So, and we have about 1,700 addresses receiving. And then our open rate is like 65% consistently, right?
That's very good.
So 1,100 or 1,200 opens, right? So, and we try not to make it too long because the longer it gets, people just too much. So it's maybe 3-4 separate items, and one of them is always the link. Actually, I think it's usually the first one, right?
Usually.
To the recent podcast. But for the benefit of priests and pastors who might hear this podcast in some future date, tell what it's like to start it and like the relative ease. I want to use those words. How about that? Okay.
I'd say there's 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, and pro.
Okay.
I would say ours lies in the intermediate level. Bishop, I'd classify yours as pro level. And there's kind of 2 aspects to it: audio and video. The beginner level, there really is nothing stopping you already. If you have a smartphone, you can have a podcast. The smartphone can record audio and video, and there are websites that will publish it on all streaming services for you for an average of about $12 a month.
Wow.
And so the barrier to entry is very low, especially today with most people having internet access and a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
When we first were looking at starting one, we would sort of review church podcasts out there. Let me tell you, Bishop, it must be pretty easy to start. We all understand what I just said. Okay, yeah. It's way too easy, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, back to you, Andrew.
Then the intermediate level is just upgrading audio and video. So as you see here, we're using dedicated microphones.
Yeah.
We have a few different cameras in the room, and you can get fancier with the recording equipment, but none of these things are outrageously expensive. It's just when you start to get into, it's the same things I think at the professional level, just again, upgraded equipment.
Right.
Our current setup, you could probably get this same quality for the ballpark of between $2,000 and $3,000.
Right.
If pastors and parishes are considering starting. But again, there is nothing wrong with starting with just your iPhone. They've become so advanced.
Right.
The quality is very, very good. You just need, I think, topics to talk about and then the consistency.
Right. Yeah.
So I get some spam emails from companies that want to promote podcast growth. But I think the stats are true. They say most podcasts don't make it past episode 5. A lot of them just kind of burn out and give up. But if you keep going, then eventually you gain traction.
Yeah, so the key is you have to make a commitment to do it on a regular basis. Yeah. We read a lot about that. Like, you got to commit. Is it once a month? Is it once a week? Like, you have to make that regular pattern. And then so we do it weekly. And regularly, it's about 30 minutes of length? That'd be a typical?
An average, yes.
Yeah, and then about how many hours of your time, your director of communications, handling lots of things, but out of all your 40 hours a week, about how many hours would you say is dedicated to podcast top work? Yeah. What would you say?
Again, I would say I would also categorize it in the 3 levels.
Okay.
If you have a beginner setup, one device for everything, you can finish it between 1 and 3 hours from start to finish, maybe a little bit more to include the actual podcast episode. But the more audio, the more video you have, editing is the big thing. Mm-hmm. I would say now on average, it takes about 8 to 12 hours total, but we now have multiple microphones and multiple cameras.
And you're creating shorts from these things too, yeah.
8 to 12 hours to edit?
Total process. So
the process, right?
Setup, recording, edit.
Okay.
Yes.
And then publish, yeah.
But I think you're saying it is easy to start, but there's no sense in starting unless you are committed to it. Because that's the same that we have learned also, that if there's not consistency, and it's that you're going to lose what you're trying to accomplish, and that is a regularly group of individuals or faithful or families expecting, okay, yeah, this is about
Exactly.
time. Yeah.
It's a relationship again. If
Right,
you
yeah.
start a conversation, they don't want to.
Right.
They don't want there to be silence when they're expecting to hear the voice. Yeah.
Do you decide beforehand, like, hey, I know it's a conversation, but do you say, hey, this is the podcast, we want to cover these 3 things or 4 things, let's make sure we get them in?
Yeah, so recently we had a podcast
Yes.
on 2 initiatives. We now have a class for adults on Sunday, Bishop.
Right.
We're getting 75 or more people coming every Sunday. So we talked about why we started that class. And
Good.
it's Father Mike is the catechism in a year, but he talks fast.
Yeah.
I said it's going to take us 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're using a textbook, really great textbook. And I said, take this class for 3 years, come as much as you can. By the end of 3 years, we will have covered everything, every
Wow.
area of the faith. So Father Thompson and I are taking turns teaching that class. We talk about our new Sunday evening mass, things like that. So yeah, there are exciting things, happy things to talk about, but you can explain much more about them than you can in a bulletin, right?
Right.
But Andrew and I will look at, like, who do we want to have as a guest? St. Vincent de Paul, youth ministry, work camp, Knights of Columbus. And Andrew does the work of preparing the questions and making it a very natural conversation. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been fun. Most of all, it's been fun.
Yeah, that's great.
But
yeah.
you do rely on
Right.
someone
Yeah.
to do the work, so you
Yeah,
can just
I know.
come in and
Yeah.
have fun.
Yeah.
So, communications at stlouisparish.org. That's Andrew's email. So,
Right, yeah.
anybody listening who wants to know more, just contact Andrew Lane. He'd be happy to.
What
tell
other
you.
responsibilities come under your work, Andrew?
Usually things having to do with sound and some text. So now video has kind of been my new. I kind of compare it to walking around with your eyes closed in a dark room. You're just trying to figure out what the room looks like.
Right.
So the same thing with video is my new dark room that I'm exploring.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, so we're partnering with what's that, kind of like a communications resource to produce some new content. We'll see. Well, stay tuned, Bishop. We have some exciting things coming.
Keep watching. Keep watching. But I really commend you both for your commitment and your time and dedication to do this. I think, again, let's use all the tools we have to get the good news out, to evangelize, to speak on the issues of the day. Podcast is one, but I think in this day and age, a very helpful one, and especially in our diocese where so many people, as you mentioned earlier, are in the car. And how do you best use that time? And so really commend you for doing this and for your commitment and dedication, because it's a commitment.
It is. Yeah. It's work, but it's also very satisfying because you're being listened to. There's so much talent in our diocese, Right. So I think so many priests they have so much wisdom to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you get good feedback? Do you feedback from the person?
Like I said, there's families that. Yeah. There's this one boy. He's special needs, 15 years old. He's on he is probably our most avid listener. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. He's amazing, but he is just week? He can repeat back to you what you said in the podcast this past week.
Wow.
So from kids to adults, they really do. And we've especially seen a lot of opportunities for the school. Like our school principal's been on. She got a lot of listeners there. PTO as well. We interviewed them, let them kind of speak about their vision for the year. So I think it's also a way of just recognizing the laity and all the important things they do,
Now, are you on X also? Are you on an X account? No.
So we are beginning to delve into the social media world.
Right. Okay.
We've had accounts in the past. I've since taken them over. So there's a little bit of cleanup to do, but yes, we intend.
I have I don't do a lot of social media outside of the podcast, but I do have an X account. Mm-hmm. But the only reason I use it, I don't use it to say, I had a hamburger for lunch today. It's like
that's great.
So I use it for just a gospel reflection. So, or the reading of the day, and so I just do whatever the character. I mean, you can do a long text if you want, but I always try to keep it to 160 or so characters, and it's just a reflection on the gospel of the day, which is really kind of nice for me because a lot of times my daily mass is like a confirmation mass or whatever. So I'm not doing I'm not celebrating mass with the readings of the day. So puts me in touch with the readings of the day, and kind of like, it's like, the 6:30 Mass homily, it's just a short thing. But I just do a reflection day, which sometimes is of course, you're preaching to yourself as well. But I often get asked to say, Bishop, do you do those posts yourself, or is someone writing them for you? But I do them myself, and I just find them, and sometimes what we do is, when you do those posts, it's like you get your homework every day, because you'll see how many people like it, or how many people, and sometimes it's like preaching. Sometimes, Father, you've had this experience where you think you have a really great homily, and it's like, I didn't get
that's funny.
Feedback wasn't great, and then sometimes you think that wasn't that great, and yet people. So one of the ways we form the script for the WTOP spots that we were talking about earlier is we sometimes look at the X account where like a message, like, wow, that resonated with people. That was just something people really needed to hear. So, okay, well, maybe that could be a message that we also share on WTOP. So again, just another tool. Another tool.
But what a neat thing that you actually have a sense of the impact on the listener, because after a homily at Mass, people always say, good homily, Father.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know the reality, right? But that's an interesting way you can really know the impact. That's neat.
Yeah, it's funny. So, but thank you, Andrew, for your work too. It's great we're blessed, Father, to have young people who are so talented, like Andrew and like my team in the communications office. Young people who are creative, who understand this world very well, who are and who want to serve the church.
Yeah, no, I'm very blessed. I want to commend Andrew because both sides of the brain work. Because in communications, there's a creativity, right? You're a musician, you have a creativity gift, but there's also like the other side of the brain, which is clarity and organization and technical skill with technology, things like that. So your philosophy degree from University of Dallas, is working. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that, I've heard. So I'm glad I'm one of the few fortunate people.
That's great, Andrew. It's you're very gifted, and we're grateful to you for sharing your gifts and talents in service to the church and service to this parish.
Thank you very much, Bishop.
Yeah.
And thank you to you. I'm actually surprised and impressed by all the things that you end up doing yourself, like you joked about the X account. But I love that you're so hands-on, and I know your schedule is jam-packed, so thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us.
Yeah, this is really wonderful, and I really do commend you, Father Hare, and your team. You really take very seriously the call of the new evangelization. We have good news to share. We have the truth to share, and let's get it out. And you're always exploring new ways that we can do that. So very grateful, and for surrounding yourself with people to help you. If it's a priority, then you have to make it the commitment with the resources, personnel, finances, everything. But this is a priority. And so thank you for doing that so well.
Well, we appreciate your encouragement.
And thanks for the invitation to be with you today, too.
Absolutely.
So can we close with the Bishop's blessing, the Bishop's voice?
Thank you, yes. And ask God's blessing upon you, Father, and your brother priests who serve here, Andrew, and your colleagues here at St. Louis, and upon the wonderful parishioners of this parish, very vibrant parish, that God continues to shower his blessings upon you, and with his grace that you will all stay strong in faith and joyful in hope and constant in your love of God and one another. Amen.